Just how tight are some of these races, and does the political climate favor Republicans?
Well, Mark, everything we've seen really over the last couple of weeks shows that the political climate is definitely favoring Republicans. That said, extremely close. That's where these races are right now. You've got more than a half dozen Senate seats, Senate races right now that are within the margin of error in the polling. You'll have an outlier here or there, but what that underscores, Mark, is that in races around the country, there hasn't been any break towards a big Republican wave. Candidates haven't really had the ability to separate themselves over the last couple of weeks, and so we're really going into election night as Republicans eye those 6 seats needed for a majority, not really knowing how close they're going to get to it or the possibility that they might go way over it. There's a lot up in the air, Mark.
Lisa, speaking of up in the air, talk to us about the election night math. What's that look like?
So Republicans, as Phil pointed out, need to win 6 seats tomorrow night. 3 of them are pretty much already in the bag. That's South Dakota, Montana, and West Virginia. So that leaves them needing to win 3 more from a pool of about 7. So there's just a lot more pathways for them to get to 51 seats than there are, and Democrats are really on defense. They just have more ways to get there. But, they're feeling confident, but not all that confident. In part, that's because very few strategists on either side think that we'll have an answer election night. This control of the Senate, this is something that could go on well into the rest of the week. There could be even into next year. There could be a runoff in Louisiana, which won't happen until December. A runoff in Georgia would be in January. And don't even get me started on Alaska, where polls don't close until 1 a.m.
Absolutely.
And you have to get ballots from tribal villages above the Arctic Circle. So we could see these results could be outstanding for quite some time.
Well, Phil, have Democrats been running away from President Obama in fear of being linked to the administration and its policies?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. Look, you haven't seen the president on the campaign trail for Senate candidates. He was on the trail for 1 in Michigan, a race that has pretty much moved into the safe category for Democrats up to this point. Democrats have had a very difficult time throughout this election cycle trying to walk the line. On the policy side of things, they mostly support what the Obama administration has done. But the political climate is so negative for this administration that candidates have had no other option than to try and distance themselves. I think what you're going to see over these last couple days, Republicans over and over again hammering that President Barack Obama is on the ballot, and Democrats trying desperately to get away from that.
Lisa, if, as Kentucky Republican Senator Rand Paul has said, this election is a referendum on the president, will Mr. Obama and congressional Democrats get credit for the economy? Are they going to get credit for an unemployment rate that is now below 6%? And will he get credit for growth that we just learned last week? It has been above 3% for 4 out of the past 5 quarters.
Well, Mark, you're right. The unemployment rate is below 6%, but people don't vote on abstract numbers, right? Voters vote on how they feel. The wages have been stagnant. Part of why that unemployment rate has dropped, all our economic analysis shows, is because people have stopped looking for work. So in terms of how voters are experiencing their daily economic lives, they're not feeling all that positive yet, and they're still feeling awfully anxious. And that anxiety is what Democrats are worried that they're bringing with them to the polls.
So that means that, I guess, in a sense, then, that they're looking, I used this in the past, but it seems germane now, that President Obama is almost like kryptonite to these folks. Mr. President, we'll stick with our local issues, so you are not, as Phil suggested, some Republicans are saying, on the ballot with us.
That's exactly right. As Phil pointed out, Republicans are trying to nationalize this race. Democrats are doing their hardest to try to make it about local issues. In North Carolina, that's state education funding. In Arkansas, that's the farm bill. And you can see that by where President Obama has traveled. Democrats in contested states don't want him. They want former President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. They're saying, President Obama, stick to these blue states, stick to these governor's races. Please, please don't come to Arkansas or Alaska or Kentucky.
Wow, that's a damning indictment. Phil, the results, how are they going to be greeted by Wall Street if Republicans win control of the Senate, thereby setting the agenda for President Obama's last 2 years in office?
Well, based on where their campaign money has been going over the last 2 years, the Republican Senate is what Wall Street is looking for. The money has started to head into that direction. Look, you talk to financial services lobbyists in town, you talk to some Wall Street executives who are kind of involved in the political sphere. They look forward to the possibility of having a chambers run by Republicans on Capitol Hill. There's a possibility that on Dodd-Frank they could get some changes they want. There's a possibility just that there's an end to gridlock, at least on Capitol Hill. I think large scheme of things, though, Mark, everybody on Wall Street is keenly aware 2016 is the election that really matters. 2014 is just setting the tone and laying the groundwork for the results that will lead to this next campaign.
So you're telling us tomorrow's the appetizer, the entree is yet to come.
Mark, we might as well have already started 2016.
No joke.